T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, ignition, 1, liftoff.
Eagles pitching downrange.
At T plus 40 seconds, you can see that Falcon 9 has now successfully lifted off from
Nominal power and telemetry.
LC-39A at 2:58 a.m. Eastern Time.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Just heard the call out that Falcon 9 is supersonic, meaning that it is traveling faster than the speed of sound, around 1,200 kilometers per hour or 770 miles per hour.
Max Q.
There you just heard the call out that Falcon 9 has reached max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is the highest pressure that the structures will feel during flight. We're about 1 minute away from several events that'll happen in quick succession. They are MECO, stage SEP, SES-1, and fairing separation. MECO, or main engine cutoff, is where all 9 of the Merlin engines on that first stage will shut down. Stage separation is when the first and second stage separate. SES-1 is second engine start, and is where we light the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. Finally, fairing separation is when the 2 fairing halves will separate and fall away from the second stage.
Stage separation confirmed.
And back ignition.
Fairing separation confirmed.
With that, you just saw on your screens a successful confirmation for MECO stage separation, second engine start 1, and fairing separation.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 1 has lit 1 engine to prepare for a graceful landing on our drone ship, a short fall of gravitas. This is the final burn that slows the rocket down to help it land on the drone
Stage
ship.
1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Falcon 9 has successfully landed on our drone ship, a short fall of gravitas.
Nominal orbit insertion.
This marks the 169th overall landing of an orbital class rocket, including both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy missions.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. Stage 1 propulsion abdominal. 2 down.
We're at T plus 30 seconds into flight. Falcon 9 successfully lifting off from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and we're carrying the Amazonas Nexus payload on board. Now we've begun tilting the engine, that's called gimbaling, and we've begun to turn the rocket horizontally away from
Power
the
and telemetry
pad.
nominal.
that is called a gravity turn. And we're still going up, but we're also heading away horizontally from the launch pad. We just throttled down the Merlin 1D engines in preparation for our next event. That's the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle, point of highest stresses during ascent.
Max Q.
So with that, we are through the point of highest stresses on Falcon 9. Now, the next major milestone will be coming up at around the T plus 2 minute and 30 mark. That'll be main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, and then SECO.
MVAC engine chill.
Excuse me, and second engine start number 1. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about the gravity turn. Part of the reason why we do that maneuver is to pick up velocity. A rocket has to go about 17,500 miles an hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth. And that's why these next 3 events are pretty important. MECO is where we shut down all 9 of the Merlin 1D engines in preparation for stage separation. That's where the first and second stages will separate. And then we'll start up that Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage for second engine start number 1. It's ultimately the Merlin vacuum and the second stage that will carry the Amazonas Nexus satellite into orbit around our planet. So again, those 3 events coming up in just under 10 seconds.
Main engine cutoff.
Acquisition of signal Bermuda.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
Great views. On the left-hand side of your screen, we're looking up through the inner stage at the second stage. And we've got a view here on the right-hand side of our screen of the Merlin vacuum engine starting its burn. This burn will continue about until the T plus 8 minute mark. Next major milestone will be fairing separation on the second stage. That coming up at about T plus 3.5 minutes. Now that we are outside of most of the atmosphere, we don't need to carry the weight of those fairing halves, so we'll jettison them back to Earth for attempted recovery and reuse on a future mission.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Great views from the top of the second stage. You can see that the fairings have separated. Once again, we'll be attempting to recover these fairing halves for use on a future mission with a recovery vessel named Bob.
See that stage 1 landing burn has begun, and in just a couple of seconds here, we will shut down the MVAC engine on our second stage.
MVAC shut down.
There you have it. Now we're just awaiting confirmation of nominal orbital insertion for the second stage.
Nominal orbit insertion.
Good call-outs there. And hopefully you heard it through the cheers in the
Expected
background.
loss of signal, Cape Canaveral.
That landing marks SpaceX's 170th recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy.
Payload separation confirmed.
And there is a great shot from the top of the second stage, watching the Amazonas Nexus satellite continue on with the rest of its mission.
Press 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. And liftoff of Starlink 5-4.
Eagle's pitching downrange.
If you're just joining us, we are at T plus 30 seconds, and Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 at 12:10 a.m. Eastern Time.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Falcon is supersonic.
With that call out, we hear that Falcon 9 is traveling faster than the speed of sound, around 770 miles per hour.
Max Q.
That call out is for max Q, which is the period of maximum dynamic pressure the rocket will feel during flight. So right now we're about 1 minute away from several events happening back to back. The first is going to be MECO, or main engine cutoff, where all 9 of the Merlin engines on the first stage shut down. Then we'll see stage separation, where the first and second stages separate from each other. Followed by second engine start 1, where we light the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage for the first time. And then we'll have fairing separation, where the 2 fairing halves separate away from each other and fall back to Earth.
Stage separation confirmed.
Separation. And back ignition.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 1 has now lit 1 engine to prepare for landing on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. This final burn slows down the rocket and will help it land on the drone ship.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Falcon 9 has successfully landed on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas, making this our 160th landing of a Falcon 9 first stage.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And there you've also heard a call out there of nominal orbit insertion for the 55 Starlink satellites that are currently on board stage 2.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power and liftoff of Starlink Group 2-5. Go Falcon, go Starlink.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
And what the chamber pressure is nominal.
At T plus 35 seconds, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Vandenberg Space Launch Complex 4 East at 11:12 a.m. Pacific Time.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Vehicle is supersonic.
There's that call out that Falcon 9 is supersonic. This means the vehicle is currently going faster than the speed of sound.
Max Q.
And there's that call out for max Q. This means that the vehicle is currently experiencing the greatest amount of external stresses as it ascends through the Earth's atmosphere.
MVAC chill.
And we are about 1 minute away from a series of events: MECO, stage sep, SES-1, and fairing separation. MECO, or main engine cutoff, is where all 9 of the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage shut down. Stage separation is when the first and second stages separate. SES-1, or second engine start 1, is where we light the Merlin vacuum on the second stage. And fairing separation is when the 2 fairing halves separate and fall away from the second stage. Keep an eye out for these events, which will happen in rapid succession.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there's confirmation that the Stage 1 landing burn has started in preparation for touchdown on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
And there you heard
MVAC
and
shutdown.
saw that Falcon 9 has successfully landed on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, in the Pacific Ocean. This marks our 172nd overall landing of an orbital class rocket, including Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy missions.
Nominal orbit insertion.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. And liftoff of Falcon 9 and Inmarsat. Go Falcon, go Inmarsat.
Vehicles pitching downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Power engine telemetry nominal.
We are just about a minute into flight, and Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from pad 40
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying Inmarsat's I-6F2 payload. We are coming up on max Q here.
Max Q.
And great news, we have just passed through max Q. That is the largest structural load that the vehicle sees on ascent. Now the rocket is typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and get into orbit. So you can keep an eye on the Stage 1 telemetry. That's on the bottom left hand of your screen there. You can see those 9 M1D engines
MVAC
burning
engine
bright.
chill has started.
Burning bright there on your screen. And we do have 3 events coming up in rapid succession. That will be MECO, stage separation, and SES-1. MECO is main engine cutoff. That's where we shut down all 9 of the M1D engines that you see burning bright on your screen. That will help slow the stage down and prepare for stage separation. That's where the first stage will separate from second stage. First stage will come back home down to Earth, while second stage continues with SES-1. That's second stage engine start 1. And that MVAC engine will ignite on the second stage. We're coming up on those 3 events here in a few seconds. MECO, stage separation, and SES-1.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation.
MVAC ignition.
And very cool views of MECO stage separation. On your right-hand screen, you can see that MVAC engine is glowing bright. That has now ignited. On your left-hand screen, you can see the grid fins deploying on that first stage. Now coming up next will be fairing separation. The fairing helps protect the payload on ascent, but once we're in the vacuum of space, we no longer need that protection. So we will jettison the fairing halves, and that's coming up here in a few seconds.
Fairing separation.
And great call out and visual confirmation that the fairing halves have deployed.
There you can see it in here on the nets. We have confirmation of SECO
Stage 1 landing burn.
And the landing burn for stage 1 has begun. We are now just waiting for confirmation of good orbital insertion for our second stage.
Nominal orbit insertion.
There you've heard on the nets, nominal orbital insertion.
Signal, Cape Canaveral.
We are now waiting for Falcon to land
Stage 1
back.
landing leg deploy.
Back on our drone ship, just read the instructions. And as you can see and hear it, you have SpaceX's 173rd recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. Now, the mission isn't just over.
Payload separation confirmed.
Inmarsat I-6F2 is drifting away from Falcon 9's second stage out in space. And that confirms successful deployment of the Inmarsat I-6F2 payload. And that will end our webcast for tonight.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff. 6-9.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Stage 1 chamber pressures nominal.
If you're just joining us, we are T+30 seconds into our mission today, and Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 at 6:13 p.m. Eastern Time.
Power and telemetry is nominal.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
With that call out, we hear that Falcon 9 is traveling faster than the speed of sound, around 770 miles per hour.
Max Q.
Max Q is the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle that it will experience during flight due to the forces of thrust, gravity, and atmospheric pressure. So we're just about 1 minute away from several events happening in quick succession. These are going to be main engine cutoff, stage separation, second engine start 1, and fairing separation. Main engine cutoff is when all 9 of the Merlin engines on the first stage shut down. Stage separation will be when the first and second stages separate from each other prior to first stage reentry. And second engine start 1 is when we light the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. Shortly after that, fairing separation will see both fairing halves separate from each other, then fall away from the second stage and return to Earth for recovery. Incredible views of the Earth behind Falcon 9 on your screen now.
We go.
Stage separation confirmed.
And back ignition.
So we just heard confirmation for successful main engine cutoff, stage separation, and second engine start 1, which you can see on your screen now. Coming up in just about 20 seconds, the fairing halves will separate from the second stage and fall back to Earth.
Bearing separation confirmed.
Terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 1 has lit one engine to prepare for landing on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. This final burn slows down the rocket to help it stick the landing on the drone ship.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing deploy.
Great feedback from our team there, and of course, beautiful views confirming that we have successfully landed stage 1.